Greetings, fellow human beings. Monkey D. Tony here once again. And for one of my first proper power scaling videos, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at a bit of a controversial opinion within One Punch Man. That being, while everyone accepts and understands how both Boros and Garou are confirmed god-level threats, and thus the highest caliber opponents to the Hero Association, can the same be said for Orochi, the previous Monster King and technically dominant leader of the Monster Association? Whenever these three come up in any form of combat or power scaling discussion, most people agree that Garou and Boros are above and would both be able to defeat Orochi, which should be fairly easily to spot when you look at all their encounters with Saitama. While the other two were able to somewhat contend with and hold out against the strongest hero, with Garou even pushing Saitama to new heights, as seen in the latest comic, Orochi was treated not too differently from other threats Saitama dispatches on a daily basis, at least in their first encounter. Whichever way you want to look at it, though, I always liked Orochi. I thought he had cool powers, a really awesome design, especially when he gets into his later forms, and I feel he doesn't get that much attention within the fandom specifically because of how Saitama dealt with him effortlessly despite being the Monster King. And I feel that that's a bit unfair, because in this verse, there's a lot more to look at for scaling than just how well a foe does against Saitama. Otherwise, every single non-god threat would be equal to each other. And call me crazy, but I feel like Carnage Kabuto or the Deep Sea King wouldn't have that hard of a time against, say, Konbu Infinity or Hammerhead. Technically speaking, the qualifications for a character to be a god-level threat is that they possess power so immense that they themselves are a threat to humanity's survival, meaning complete and utter human extinction. From a power level perspective, this is normally viewed as possessing either planet-busting capabilities, though from the official definition of a god-level foe, that could be either a planet or moon level, as the standard scale of power necessary to be a life wiper, which is a title for being able to destroy all life on a planet like Earth or cause massive scale damage to it enough to render it unsuitable for life. And that normally puts a character at moon busting. And again, for a scenario like this, we would be using our own moon as a reference, which the energy needed to destroy a celestial object of its size would be roughly equal to 30 trillion megatons of TNT. Though I guess that's not brought up as much since in One Punch Man, they don't really delve into any destructive feats involving the moon. Because unlike Dragon Ball, where you can just wish it back with some orbs, or just don't require it anymore. Yeah, remember that time Roshi destroyed the moon, and for like 2 years, nothing catastrophic happened regardless of the moon being vaporized? Make no mistake, I'll be making a video on that in the future. Okay, sorry, got off track there. But the point is, in order for Orochi to indeed be deemed god level, he would either have to be capable of destroying the moon or Earth. So, do his brief showings of power put him on this level? Let's find out. The first analysis of Orochi's power would be his standing in the Monster Association. He was king for a damn good reason. Every individual within their ranks, with the possible exception of Psychos, who was controlling him, and the Dragon Levels, who were second in command to him, were scared shitless of him. And for good reason. Awakened Cockroach didn't even bother to try anything when Orochi was literally about to eat him alive, despite still being in fighting condition as he put it, and after battling Genos, whom at the time had undergone significant upgrades from G4, another formidable opponent who utilized light-based lasers to combat the demon cyborg and was also able to evade these. It should also be noted that Genos at this point had already upgraded himself 3 times and should at least be twice as strong as he was when he vaporized part of a mountainside, as well as the entire top of a mountain way off in the distance. And yet, fighters of this caliber are nothing compared to Orochi. There is also a common misconception that the only reason Orochi was in the Monster King position, compared to other fighters who seem like they could be as powerful, like many of the higher-ups of the Monster Association, such as Homeless Emperor or Black Sperm. And yes, that is a real character and his real name. This theory is that Orochi is only there to act as a puppet for Jiro, whose real identity is Psychos, and is able to make more monsters from him, as it's his unique physiology that makes the monster cells that can transform even an average human into a demon-level monster. And while I can understand where this theory is coming from, I still think he's more than deserving of his spot. And in regards to Psychos, it's heavily implied that Orochi actually knows that Psychos is using him and is simply going along with her plans, only pretending to be controlled. When Orochi was in a heavily weakened state after his run-in with Saitama, and Psychos demanded he come to her aid and combine their powers to fight Tatsumaki, Orochi only came to her aid so that he could attempt to absorb Psychos into himself, and only to make himself stronger, as well as steal her psychic abilities for his rematch with Saitama and Tatsumaki, who he was already confident in combating even before he absorbed his second-in-command. And while Psychos is able to wrestle control of the form from him, it's only due to her having previously amplified herself in order to help her fight Tatsumaki, and Orochi's current state, which was little more than a puddle of goo, barely able to fight. It's also very evident that she's extremely scared of being absorbed by him and knows he's capable of doing so, which is why she is forced to drastically push herself in order to survive, and results in their combined power becoming Psychorochi. This form is a bit of a tough one to scale though. Rather than a standard combined power like, say, a gem fusion or a fusion form from Dragon Ball, which is two individuals' power being combined or multiplied based on the two individuals' strength, which is normally fairly equal, Psychorochi seems to really be Psychos' mental powers and intelligence controlling Orochi's abilities and strength. Therefore, even though it's technically both of them, the majority of the power is coming from his half. This form was able to fight evenly with Tatsumaki, at least for a while, who could hold back apocalyptic level disasters while fighting and lift massive sections of landmass before twisting them up like paper. Arguably one of their best feats was using one of their beams to lift an entire section of the Earth's oceanic plate, which can be seen all the way from space. That kind of force can come out to petatons of destructive energy for such a feat. So, the big question remains. Can we classify Orochi as a god-level threat? Based on what we've seen from him, and even what we didn't, I would have to say yes. Though his feats are few and far between, we've seen him with power enough to cause massive extinction-level events and deal damage to the entire Earth on a massive scale. Had Orochi not run into Saitama and managed to make it to the surface to tango with the other S-Class heroes, they would have been in for a hell of a fight. And from what happened later on, had they fought Orochi first, they probably would never have been in enough shape to stop the rest of the surviving members of the Monster Association, and definitely not Garou, making it pretty clear from a plot standpoint why he was only able to showcase his powers against Garou and Saitama, and technically Tatsumaki too. He was just too much of a danger to the others, and even if he couldn't defeat them all, he would have had nearly all of his commanding officers there to fight alongside him. Even if the other fights played out in the same way between the S-Class and the Dragon threats, he'd still be there to crush any survivors. So while it's true, I also think he would still lose to the likes of Garou and Boros. The Monster King Orochi is definitely worthy of the position God Threat Rank 3. Except for when God himself starts throwing hands with the main cast. That dude amped up Garou to Saitama levels for a while. I hope this video helped your opinion on one of One Punch Man's more underrated characters. Monkey D. Tony, out.